It all started with a dream. It was my dream that the Catholic Student Center across Forsyth could create an energy over there that could leave a sonic boom over here. That the love there would open up a healthy, non-toxic, vibrant, transformative experience of faith there that would affect the culture here and set a fire in our students and the rest of us who could take that fire to the parish they would someday inhabit and other communities of friends and family and neighborhoods and create that sonic boom somewhere else in the world. I think you probably know, that Gary Brown has a very restless heart. My restless heart would not let me settle ever for how we were doing, but that we could always do better, that we could always reach more and different kinds of students and do religion in just enough of a different way with a priest who is just enough of a different kind of priest, who had just enough of a restless heart himself, with a drive to do better today than he did yesterday. Frankly, the whole thing was an experiment in trying out that dream to see if it could, maybe just might be God's dream as well. That maybe God put it here. A different way to do church. A community with a shared purpose of loving young people into life. A community built out of a shared, passionate purpose, all together. And Mass, the Eucharist, like what we're doing right now, that we could help people who gather feel something of the presence, the divine presence with us and within us when we gather like this. And I have to say it worked. It really worked. Much to my surprise. I learned through them all that failure here, all those years, that failure here and there along the way is not the end of the world. But every failure is the beginning of a whole new world, of whole new possibilities. We began with hardly any money. Betty Godfrey, the first secretary of the CSC, we were together for about 15 years. She could tell you that. She reminded me this morning of how we kept getting called down to the chancery for breaking one rule or another that we didn't even know were rules. But we began with hardly any money and hardly any students, to now being able to make our way through this world and even through a worldwide pandemic, not having a clue how to do church in a worldwide pandemic. This restless heart, and I called it a curse many days, and also I know it to be a blessing. This restless heart never really rested and would not let either our staff or our students rest either with what we had done and even had done well. This restless priest knew he could do better and be healthier and always, hopefully, less toxic in the way he did his own life and his relationships and the way we do religion here. And most especially, every time, without exception, we gather like this. I know I could appear confident, perhaps because of the volume of my opinions. But I can tell you that I was a fish out of water. And there was always this background noise playing that too often played too loudly. And my work, my personal work, was to learn from the volume of that anxiety and that kind of insecurity, to learn from it about myself and turn down the volume so I could hear you and God. What never really left me was that I was always, throughout all these years, including this very moment, I always waited for the other shoe to drop. I suspected it always would, and it did sometimes over those 3.5 almost decades. And there were many things we tried that didn't work. And many days the nude. Freud. There were many days the news really was bad. And I learned from the pilgrimage that 24 of us took on the Camino de Santiago in Spain. On that pilgrimage, I learned that as a leader and as a follower of Yeshua, Jesus, I only had to do the next right thing. Take the next step, even if it hurt like crazy. Is striving wrong? There's a lot of talk these days about telling people they're good enough. Believe that you're good enough, we say. And that's not untrue. And yet it's also true that we could do way better. I could be a better man and a better priest. You can be way better. And we all, without exception, have some growing to do to be more capable of giving and receiving love, to discover what in me and in us stops that flow, gets in the way of that ongoing divine flow of giving and receiving love, to be more capable of giving and receiving love than we were. There's always more to understand, more to experience, more to see in each other, more to ask of myself, more to ask of ourselves, more wisdom to be had, more to learn about nature, the universe all around us, and more to learn about the mystery we call God. And the way Jesus opened up for us, that God opened for us through Jesus and his way. An opening to a universe of meaning and fulfillment when we live his way in this world. Along that way, his way, I wanted to not be too afraid, ever to be too afraid. And I wanted to be both affirming and challenging. When I got my first monovision contact lenses, that became for me a metaphor for love as I know it. With monovision contacts, I see up close, and I see distance with the other eye. And somehow the eye and the mind adjust to that so that I can see both at the same time. All of us end up seeing both at the same time. I wanted to love every student who crossed the doorway of the Catholic Student Center, and you all as well, in both ways. I wanted to love you just as you are, as you stand before me ever. No exceptions, not accepting any part of you as acceptable and welcome. And I wanted to be able to see in you and in your life so that I can say what I need to say so that that student can be happier when he or she is 50 even happier when they're 50. You all as well, even happier when you're 50. Well, 70 or 80 or 90. I have learned with every ending, with every goodbye, before there can be a new beginning, there are three things that must be said, that should never go unsaid, especially at critical times, like endings and beginnings. Three things that I have tried to say when it was time to leave friends and parishes and every senior class and the deathbed of too many I have loved. And this morning, on this Pentecost morning, now to you, three things that must be said. And the first is, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. We all have a superpower or two, they say. Mine, for better or worse, is that I have an eye for what's missing in you, in our community, in our world, in our church, in our city. I see quickly, readily, what's not happening, who's not here. I see it almost alongside, and maybe even more than I see what is happening and who is here. I am grateful for that seeing, though, like I said, it's been a curse as well, because I know that seeing can help me say what needs to be said when I see it, even if it's hard to say. Yes, it's been a terrible burden to be aware of that sometimes, and I count it as a sin when I fail to say it, because now I have to be the one to say it. It's a risk-taking, because sometimes it makes people really mad. But the pressure for me was when it comes to students, I really only had 8 months with them a year for 4 years. And the time was urgent to say now what needs to be said so they can be freer tomorrow than they are today. One of our students, who is here, she drove all the way in from Omaha, is Katie DeLeo. Katie, where are you? Oh, you're up here. Stand up real quick, would you? Real quick. Thank you. This is Katie.
Hi.
No, you don't have to clap, especially when you hear the story is not even said yet. I met Katie, almost 20 years ago now at a fraternity party.
21.
She invented a term that has never left me. What I'm talking about, she started to call Gary bombs. Gary bombs. I know I did it for love, but I also know I didn't always do it with love. And often my own anxieties made me too blunt. I definitely suffer from foot-in-mouth disease. Gary bombs. There's such a gift in many ways, and Katie's come to count it as a gift. But it's hard sometimes to say it and to hear it. But somebody's got to tell us. And I'm sorry that I said yes to so many things, that I wasn't as available to you some days when you needed me. I'm sorry that I rushed past you on the way to some meeting or some fundraiser when I could tell you really wanted to talk. I'm sorry for all the times I made you uncomfortable with my attempts at humor. I like to debate. I like to argue issues. It works great when I'm on a panel or on a radio station, but I forget that not everybody likes to argue. I'm sorry. And for all the times I tried too hard and made you uncomfortable, I'm really sorry for that. One thing that brings me peace is about this Jesus I love and try to follow in him is that he was shocking sometimes and he made people mad. He made them squirm. Of anything we know about his life, it's that he made people mad because it cost him his life. And a good priest and a good friend has got to learn to do the same, but never, ever without love. I say I'm sorry to you because in all those ways I hurt you, which happens in community and family too often, but real. I want to say you are so good and deserve better than that. And I thank you for whatever in your heart you can open up to me again in forgiveness. I'm sorry. And thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your trust in me, for your belief in me in spite of it all. Thank you for the permission you gave me to just be Gary and your priest. The inspiration to me of your faith and your constant desire to go even deeper into life and to keep growing at whatever age. We shared so many laughs and so many tears over these years. But I can honestly say the tears were mostly from being touched to the core by your life. The inspiration you have been to me has fueled my constant desire to go deeper into life myself and to do the work and keep growing. Your goodness has made me want to be gooder. I have always said that many of you passed several parishes on your way to the CSC on any given Sunday. And it's because you were hungry. You wanted your faith to matter. You wanted your faith to be real, so you went out of your way, Sunday after Sunday, some 45 minutes away, some an hour away, because you were so hungry for a deeper faith and hope and love. Thank you. Thank you. And thanks for the deep talks over the years, where hours felt like minutes, and we got lost in the ether reserved for God himself. And what's more, I would not be here without your generosity and your goodness. Again, we started with nothing. I met along the way a very generous God and some very generous people. All of that made me way less afraid. Many of you have been a part of all this for a long time, even back to 1991, when many of you were in college, and you were more than willing to help us, you all, more than willing to help us, and even work beside us, keeping the students front and center at this work, even being willing to not have your needs met for the sake of our college students. That's amazing. That's amazing, and it helped me more than I can say to do what is ours to do. We, you and I, we have been co-workers in this mission. Thank you. And I want to say a special thank you to Troy for being with me in this dream. For nearly 20 years of one sacrifice after another, his own family sacrificing. Most of you don't know this, but he just, while he's still going to continue with us, he just was elected to a national position in the U.S. Bishops' Conference. Will make his work even more full-time. Troy's a good man. I hope I can be that good. He'll bring back to us, I know, from a higher perch, what's happening around the nation in campus ministry with young people and the challenges they face. And he's still ours. Troy, I hope you know the dream could have never happened without you. And thank you, Father Brian. Thank you for your own dream now. Not mine, but yours. You have helped make my endings and your beginnings nothing less than beautiful. I know I wasn't always the kind of priest that some people wanted, and I accept that. And maybe for others of you, perhaps I was the type of priest you were waiting for. Not because of my virtue necessarily, but because there's not a doctrine Gary Brown did not struggle to understand and accept. Not a doctrine. That I had to find my own experience before I could give my assent. It was never easy, ever. It seems to me there's a little atheist in all of us. And I gotta say, I kind of love my little atheist. Because in one way or another, I've always felt close to those who struggle to believe. And these buildings are full of them, as is this pulpit. Those for whom faith doesn't come easy. I get it. And if you are one of them this morning, I love you for it. You belong here. Somewhere along the way, I decided to be a person and therefore a priest who tried his best to live his life as someone with nothing to prove, nothing to hide, and nothing to lose. I am forever grateful to you, my friends, who were the kind of people who made it way easier to do that. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I am grateful. Thank you. And lastly, what needs to be said clearly is that I love you. I've come to see because of you that if there's a secret to make God happen in this world, happen for people through preaching or leading in prayer or great and deep conversations, it is communicating that we really like each other, that I have affection for you that comes up so naturally when I'm clear enough in my presence to not be preoccupied with some anxiety or somewhere else I have to be. When I'm just with you, I just fall in love with you all over again. If there's such a thing as a superpower for leaders, it seems to me, and especially for priests, is that we let ourselves like our people. I hope you can tell how much I like you. I really like you. And my last gratitude is that 47 years ago, this Tuesday, the church looked at this very human being and ordained me anyway. My last gratitude is that I was your priest these 33 years, which is as long as Jesus was alive. What did he do with his life? And that by being your priest, you made me a better man and a better human. Could I love you anymore? And so on this Pentecost morning, a feast that marked an ending and a beginning, I mark this moment with you, for each of you and for myself, with a very brief story that perhaps can say it all. Once upon a time, there was an old man living in a small village. He spent his days sitting in an old wicker chair, whittling away at a stick, his dog laying on the ground beside him. And one afternoon, in the heat of the afternoon, a rabbit popped up in front of them, and his dog caught sight of the rabbit and even his scent. And the dog took off after that rabbit, and he was a howlin'. His dog took up the chase, barking away loudly through the village. It wasn't long before the other dogs around the village heard all this commotion and took up the chase as well. Soon all the dogs of the village were caught up in the chase, barking loudly, so that the whole village took note. And they kept in there, and their feet were bloodied then by the stones and the thistles, and their voices were hoarse with the barking. And they went up hills and down hills and across creeks and valleys, through forests. And it wasn't long before the dogs in the chase grew weary, bloodied, dirty, exhausted. And so one by one, they dropped off. One by one, they abandoned the chase. All but one. Just the one dog stayed in the chase, barking loudly, chasing the rabbit. Do you know why? Do you know why all the other dogs gave up the chase and there was only just this one left? It's because that was the only dog who saw the rabbit with his own eyes, smelled him, and gave chase. The rest, they were all just barking dogs. Gary Brown is just a barking dog. The staff of the CSC, our campus ministers, as a matter of fact, the whole community, we are just barking dogs. The rabbit is Jesus and his way of life and love. I won't worry about you if you see the rabbit with your own eyes. I won't worry about you if you've picked up the scent of God in our gatherings. I will worry about you if you haven't. I really hope you have along the way. But if you've seen the rabbit with your own eyes, and you've gotten a strong whiff of that love during your time at the CSC, then I will have an easy trust, and I will die one happy man, because I will know you will be well in every manner of way. You will be well.